So, hey everyone, this is Nicholas Wilton at Art to Life, and I'm super psyched to be talking today to the author and the creator of the very, very cool book called Disrupted Realism. I ended up getting this book quite by accident. Someone mentioned it. I love the title. I bought the book. I fell in love with it. And now I have the good fortune to be talking to its author today. John's an artist. He's taught art for many years. He's taught art history and became an amazing art critic, blogger, and writer. So, John, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So real quick, just maybe we should just say what disruptive realism, and then get into some aspect of this that people can kind of consume. Because when I heard the title, I understood what it was, but what is it, and why is it happening now, and what are the sort of tenets of this?
All right. Well, I'm actually going to read you something from the book in a moment, but to put it in simple terms, disrupted realism is a way of saying that artists who are interested in realism, who are capable of realism, are finding ways to bring other ingredients into their artwork. Something is making its way into their art that's new or unexpected or refreshing. And from the book, I knew when I published the book that people would say, John, what are you talking about? I mean, what is this? So I want to read you the definition that I came up with. Disrupted realism is a term that describes works of art made by artists who have deviated from the norms of realism. I kept that part really pretty safe, right?
Yeah, that I got. Yeah.
There we go. These deviations, which may involve one or more formal elements, such as line, form, and color, are made intentionally, often through improvisation, to serve expressive purposes. By disrupting and expanding the tradition of realism, artists may suggest time, memory, and individual experience, or refer to digital, photographic, or cinematic sources. It's a subjective approach to painting that favors perception over seeing and which embraces subjectivity. So that's the academic part. I mean, that is the definition, but I'd love to talk with your viewers about how they might apply that to their own work.
Yeah, because a lot of people watching this are creators, are artists, but basically what you're saying with that, it just took me a while. I kind of just kept thinking about it. Is just it's realism, but there's a personal tweak in there. There's personality, subjectivity is coming through. It's like blistering through the painting. It actually feels like that. It's yeah. So.
Well, I think what I would say, first of all, to the people who are listening, you're at all in different places with your painting, and you have a different relationship with realism, if realism is an ingredient in your artwork. But I think of realism as being objective. It begins with what you see with your eyes. It's factual. It's related to what a camera would show us. And what I found as I was writing the book is that some artists who are trained in realism would leave the studio at the end of the day and be asking themselves, how can I put more of myself into my work? There's things that I want to say that I can't necessarily say just by representing the world. I have to give people a sense of how I respond to the world and what I'm feeling in the world.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to say to people that are interested in this process, interested in this idea of disruption, if you get a hold of the book, the artists that are there are meant to inspire you, but not to be copied. Because I really think that what you need to keep in mind is, if you copy the work of an artist you admire, you might start out doing that. Maybe that's something you do when you're young. It's what people used to do with the old masters. But then you have to leave it behind. Because if you don't do that, there's a Greek word for it. You become an epigone. And an epigone is a lesser version of a great master. That's not what you want to be. That's not what you want to do. But if you take a look at the book, you're going to find different ways that each of these artists has come through their career and said, for example, it's the brushwork. I want to find a kind of brushwork, a way of applying the paint, a way of letting my perceptions come through in my tools that's unique. And a great example of that, I'll give you an example artist. Anne Gale is one of the artists in the
Yeah,
book.
yeah,
And her paintings, they look like 10,000 touches of the brush.
right.
Like each individual brushstroke is her experiencing her inspection of the model one more time. So that's an example of a change that she made to show how important perception was to her. That's one example.
But what's so interesting is that that's sort of the anchor or the challenging piece of this is that it's anchored in realism, right? Like we can be plenty personal when we just fling paint and when we're completely free. It's easier for us to stand out or to be different. But when you're recording something you've seen that we all know and recognize, that's what becomes challenging. And then we're hanging on to that, but then we're also modifying it
You're
to
modifying it, and
so
you have
cool.
to shake something up. I mean, one of the things you never want to do as an artist, you never want to bore yourself. Because if you bore yourself, everybody else is going to be bored too. You never want to be bored in the studio. So I would say to artists that are, you're mulling over this idea of disruption, take one of the formal elements that goes into your artwork. And you all know this from Design 101, it would be color or line or form or space. Take one of the formal elements and do some work in a sketchbook or a notebook or do some small paintings and ask yourself, what can I tweak? What can I do without? What can I change up? Sometimes just changing your palette, just changing the way you have colors relate to each other can be a revolution in
Yeah,
your painting. But that's one way to kind of get your foot in the door of, I'll say, disrupting or
yeah.
moving towards something more personal.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Well, listen, we've got links down below where you guys can get this book, and I highly recommend it. You know me, I don't recommend much, but this is a great book to add to your library. Um, John's offered to. We're going to offer a book to the one lucky listener, and I guess John, I think what I've done in the past is what I'd love to do. People will leave some comments about what this conversation and what maybe they thought of the book or what they think about this subject. And if you could swing by and maybe choose one that you think is the most interesting, and then we can send that person a book. Does that
You know
sound
what
like
I'll
a good
do? I'm
idea?
gonna, I'm going to do it a little bit differently. I'm going to
Okay,
read
good.
them, but I do a lot of giveaways, and my 13-year-old daughter is always the chooser. She likes to
Ah,
choose
okay.
who wins. So I'm going to look at all of the comments, all of the likes, whatever responses we get. I'll have her into the room because I know some people. I don't want to be biased towards my friends or people on,
Ah, okay.
and I will just say, take it away, you choose, and then whoever she chooses, I like to use a big blue Sharpie. You're going to get a copy of Disrupted Realism with an inscription in Sharpie in the front, and I'll have some fun with it. I'll just say, to our long-term friendship or whatever.
Okay.
Get the book signed and inscribed and get it in the mail to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for this really juicy little conversation. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Big pleasure.